You know, right. The podcast that uncovers the origin stories of some of the biggest names in sports, media, and entertainment. Nick Durst here, along with Joe Calabrese. Joe, I'm excited for our guest today. He's very well liked by the hockey community. We unfortunately had to dislike him during three of his stints with a particular team that we absolutely hate. But why don't you tell everybody who we have with us today?
We're very blessed to have a former NHL player with us, a former NHL goaltender of 13 years. And most recently, you would have seen him doing some broadcasting, some in-studio reporting, in-game analysis for the NBC and NBC Sports. And now he joined ESPN in 2021, most recently, with the new TV deal and everything. So somebody we're very, very happy and fortunate to have on with us. And obviously, I'm a huge hockey guy, so this is going to be right up my alley. Brian Boucher. Brian, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Great to be with you both, Joe and Nick. Should be fun. I'm sorry that you guys hated me, as you said, off camera for a couple of stints, but that's A-okay. Hopefully you guys will like me after this.
No, we definitely like you now, but we are Rangers fans, so we had to dislike you with the Flyers.
All good. All good. I totally understand.
All right. So you did grow up in Rhode Island, which is not necessarily a hot hockey bed. How did you begin playing hockey as a child?
Well, my mom and dad moved from Canada in, I believe it was 1969. I was born in 77. So I have an older brother and sister that are Canadian. My next brother and I were born in Rhode Island. And we were brainwashed as kids, to be honest with you. My dad, everything in the house was hockey. It was hockey and baseball, really, growing up. But Rhode Island we've had it's a small state, but we've had some quality hockey players that have been developed in the state. We had a great youth hockey league when I was a kid, and even before myself. We've had two first overall picks in the whole NHL draft come out of Rhode Island. In '83, Brian Lawton, who played at my alma mater, Mount St. Charles Academy, and Brian Berard in 1995, who I grew up with, was drafted first overall as well. So, and we've had some rival schools that we played against that pumped out some pretty good players. But, we've had some quality NHL players for such a small state. I know we're not like Minnesota or Massachusetts or Michigan, I guess you could say, but we've had some quality. So I was blessed. I mean, coming from a state with great coaches, and like I said, my dad got me into the game at a young age and fell in love with it, and really never looked back.
So growing up, if you're doing some travel hockey and whatnot, did you guys really get amped up to play those Massachusetts teams, or those your big rivals?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we always felt like the little brother, they couldn't beat or match up to the big brother whenever we played teams from Massachusetts. You get those Boston kids. They can be tough, and they try to intimidate you. So we always had our hands full. But like I said, I was fortunate on the team that I grew up playing with. Brian Berard was on my team, and he was, I mean, honest to God, he might be the best hockey player I ever seen coming up through the ranks. It's unfortunate that he had an eye injury that derailed his NHL career, because I'm confident he would have been a Hall of Famer. I mean, he was that good. But to have him on our team, I mean, basically he was a one-man show. So he always kind of was like the ultimate equalizer, if not put us over the top in beating some of those Massachusetts teams. Yeah, but we certainly tried to beat those guys anytime we got a chance to play them.
How did you end up becoming the goalie?
So my brother Bruce, who was 6 years older than me, he was a goalie growing up, and I was too young to play on the Mite team. I think I was 5, and they needed a goalie on the Mite team, and so they asked my dad, seeing that my older brother was a goalie, they said, "Hey, would Brian be interested in playing goal?" And my dad asked me, and before he get out of his mouth, I said, "Yeah, absolutely." I mean, I love the pads. I love the gear. The fact that my older brother was a goalie who I looked up to big time. I wanted to play goal. So I jumped in there, never looked back. I did like a year and a half or maybe 2 years of instructional hockey, learn to skate, learn to play hockey. And then once I put the goalie gear on, That was it. I mean, I was a full-time goalie after that, and really fell in love with it.
And definitely made the right decision, of course, looking back on it. When did you realize, though, that you could potentially make a living out of playing hockey?
Um, it was my junior year of high school going into my senior year. Back then the United States had select camps that you'd go to, and when I was 16 years old, so when I was in my 10th grade year going into my 11th grade year, I'd had some injuries in my 9th and 10th grade year of high school, so I was good when I was younger, and then I kind of hit a wall and had some injuries. I had knee surgery in 9th grade, had a shoulder injury in 10th grade, kind of derailed both my seasons. But at the select camp in 10th grade, I got cut the first round of cuts. In Lake Placid, you go to Lake Placid first, and then if you make it through Lake Placid, you go to Colorado Springs and you try to make the national team for your 16-year-old year. Well, I got cut right away in Lake Placid, and I was crushed. And my good buddy who I mentioned, Brian Boucher, he went to Lake Placid, was the best player on the ice. We had to drive from Lake Placid back to Rhode Island in the car. I'm crying on the way back because I got cut. And he's happy because he made it on, but he was a good friend and didn't brag about it too much. But that motivated me big time. The next year, my junior year in high school, I had a great year. And then that next summer, when we went to the Select 17 camp the year after, Lake Placid, I excelled, did great, made it to Colorado Springs, did great, and I actually made the U.S. Select 17 team after being cut the year prior in the first round of cuts. And from there, the doors opened up. I mean, I was one of the top 2 goalies in the United States for my age group, and colleges were all over me. NHL scouts were starting to come watch, and all of a sudden I was rated for the draft, and things kind of happened real fast. So it really was that one season, my junior year going into my senior year, where everything changed.
So can you touch on some of the advancements and differences now that we see the United States National Development Program? I mean, they're churning out first-round picks left and right.
Yeah.
We've won 5 World Junior Championships because of the time that you played and you were doing the whole developmental process. We had yet to accomplish that. So to do it 5 times since then. And really, I think ultimately we are challenging Canada as the preemptive hockey powerhouse and probably slowly taking that title away from them. I think we still have a little time to go here. But so could you just talk about the differences in the development program and how you've seen the changes since, just because you owe a lot of your career to being a byproduct of that?
Yeah, Joe, it's a great question. I mean, so when I was coming up, I mentioned we had like all these kind of like different sections of the United States that had developed their, like, you almost like New England developed their own players, Massachusetts developed their own players, Michigan had their own, Minnesota, and then we all kind of came together for these select camps. So it was not uniform. But when I played on 2 World Junior Championship teams, one in 95, one in 96. During the one in 96, or maybe it was 97, we're in Geneva. We finished second that year, which was the best that the United States had ever done up to that point. We were approached by Jeff Jackson, our then head coach, who asked us and said, because I went and played Major Junior in the Western Hockey League, I decided not to play NCAA because I wanted to play more games. And as a goalie, I figured if I got stuck behind an upperclassman, that wasn't going to work for me. I needed to play hockey, and I want to make it to the NHL. But he asked us. He said, "Look, we're thinking of starting a program where you would, instead of going to play Major Junior like I did in the Western Hockey League, you would go to the U.S. national team and play their full year." He said, he asked a bunch of us, "Would you guys be interested in doing that?" And we were like, absolutely, we would be interested in that. That would have been unbelievable. It would have saved a lot of headache for a lot of us, because we were all, where are we going to go? How are we going to get there? Is it USHL? Is it Major Junior? Do you play a lower junior league before you try to advance to college? A lot of tricky decisions to make back when I was 17 years old. So when that's where basically the genesis of that program started. And after that, they basically evaluated the players, got them there, and kept them for the whole year. So you imagine they only had us on a Select 17 team you had 1 week in Lake Placid, 10 days in Colorado Springs, and then you eventually play for a national team at a tournament. And then you go back to your homes and you play for your teams. So the uniform development is not there. Now you're taking this program, you're putting it all in one spot, and you're doing it for 8 to 9 months. That's why the United States development program has made strides in developing players, and that's why you mentioned the first round picks. You mentioned the World Junior Championships. It's all because you're putting them all under one roof. A bunch of alpha males who are super competitive, that want to push each other, and the results are there. Now, some years are better than others, but for the most part, they're doing a great job of developing players.
And you talk about first round picks. You were one yourself. You were drafted 22nd overall in the 1995 draft by the Philadelphia Flyers. Talk about your buddy Brian Boucher, but you were a first round pick in your own right. So when you played at the WHL, you played for the Tri-City Americans, and throughout the process of development, you were in Philadelphia playing for the Phantoms. Talk about your experiences playing with the WHL, doing traveling, and then when you came stateside full-time, when you started playing with the Phantoms, and ultimately, how did you use motivation to reach the NHL?
Yeah, the Western Hockey League was far from where I grew up in Rhode Island, that's for sure. I mean, I was in Washington State, the team that I played for. Lots of time on the bus in that league. We had a team, Prince George, in British Columbia, that was 15 hours from Tri-City, that was in our division. So, you take a 15-hour bus ride, you basically ride through the night, you wake up, and you still got another 7 hours of daylight driving. So it's a tough league. It was a tougher league then than I think it is now, as far as like just the physicality. There used to be a lot of fights in that league. Not that I did much of that, but we had warm-ups that were separate. Like in the Western League, we had 2 separate warm-ups, full ice warm-ups. So we would go, if you're the road team, you'd go out 15, 17 minutes earlier than the home team. You'd warm up, go back to your room, and the home team would come out and warm up. You're not the same teams warming up at the same time that you see in the NHL, because there was brawls back in the day during warm-up. So, but I guess they've gotten away from that. Guys are behaving themselves much better now. But it was a heck of a league, a lot of great players, and it prepared me for making that next step to pro hockey. And fortunate to be drafted by Philadelphia. It got me back on the East Coast, a chance for my family to see me play a little bit more. I remember back when I was playing in the 90s, there was no online streaming to watch your kid play from 3,000 miles away. So my mom and dad didn't get to see me play much. So when I came back to Philadelphia and playing with the Phantoms, closer to home, a lot more trips up into the New England area. New Haven was here, Bridgeport, Providence, Worcester, Springfield, teams like, all within driving distance. So it was good for that. And with the Phantoms, we had great teams, veteran-laden teams that were tough, that were skilled. And in my rookie year, we ended up winning the Calder Cup, which was a lot of fun.
And ultimately, what was it like getting that call that you reached the NHL and you started playing for the Flyers in the 1999-2000 season?
Yeah, so I played 2 full years with the Phantoms, and I remember getting a call in the summertime. It was around, I think it was late July. I got a call from then goalie coach Reggie Lemlin, former Bruins goaltender, and he's my goalie coach. And he said, "Hey," he goes, "how's your summer training going?" I said, "It's going good. Going into my 3rd year pro." He says, "Well," he goes, "you got a real chance to make the Flyers next year. Ron Hextall is retiring." So I was like, "Whoa," you know what I mean? And all of a sudden, the next day, your training kicks into another gear. I mean, you got a jolt of energy, and you kind of were hoping. The 2 guys that were ahead of me were John Van Beesbrook and Ron Hextall. Both older guys. You didn't know how it was going to play out. You're a young guy, trying to knock on the door. And when Hextall retired, that basically that opened the door for me. Now, I had a great training camp, made the team. My rookie year was a magic year, to be honest with you. I mean, you're playing with all these guys you grow up admiring and idolizing, and all of a sudden they're your teammates, and it's the National Hockey League, right? So you're flying on, you're flying on private planes, and making good money, and our team is good. I mean, like, let's face it, we were a Stanley Cup contending team. Unfortunately, we didn't win my rookie year, but man, we had some great players. And I joke around and say it was all downhill after my rookie year, but it was a magical year and a dream come true to make it to the NHL.
Well, magical year led by you. I mean, you led the league in goals against average in your first season. I mean, how did that feel? And were you surprised that as to how well you played in your first year?
Yeah, I was surprised, and that's why I say it was all downhill after that, Nick, because if you look at my goals against averages after that year, they steadily went up. Yeah, I did surprise myself, to be honest with you. I just think, the excitement that I had being there, the gratitude that I had to be there. I was in such a good place emotionally and mentally and physically. You're 23 years old, so you're at the peak of your life, right? There's really no injuries that you have to battle. I mean, you feel great, and it was just awesome. We had a great team. My team played great in front of me. I didn't, I remember we were up 3-1 on Jersey in the conference final. And, our team was, like I said, we had guys like Mark Recchi, Rick Tocchet, Eric Desjardins, John LeClaire, Eric Lindros. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, we had so many great professionals on our team, made my job easy. And you think it's going to be that way every year after, but you find out the hard way that it's not always as good as it can be. So that when I look back on my career, that was a lot of fun. I sure wish we would have finished off Jersey when we had the chance. Like I say, we're up 3-1 on them. They came back and beat us in 7, and they eventually won the Stanley Cup because, winning a Stanley Cup in my rookie year, you just wonder, what if? I mean, what if we win that? What becomes of your career? All of that stuff. And, you realize how hard it is to win a Stanley Cup, and the fact that I came close that year. And then again in 2010, it just kind of leaves it's a tough pill to swallow as an athlete, knowing that you can't get another crack at it.
Sure, you definitely come in hot start and you think, oh, this is going to be every year, and it just doesn't materialize. For that first season there, how many cheesesteaks did you eat?
Late night cheesesteaks, knowing that you got a day off the next day, maybe you go out and have a few too many pops, so you gotta absorb it with a few cheesesteaks. I'm not gonna lie to you, I ate quite a few. Like I said, when you're 23, 24, you got a little room there. You can do that, and you can turn that into some fuel for the next day. But yeah, I was a Geno's guy. I like Geno's steaks personally over Pat's, but that's my opinion.
Fair enough. Last year, Joe and I went down to Philly for a day. We had Pat's and Geno's.
Did you? Which ones did you like? What do you prefer?
I like Pat's better between the two, but I've also been to other places. I think James is very good.
James is good.
D'Alessandro's is very, very good. A lot of my friends like D'Alessandro's. So I was in Philly not too long ago. So I passed by Geno's and Pat's. But yeah, between the two, because that's the argument. It's like, I'm a Pat's guy.
I think a lot of people are. I like to go against the grain. That's why I say Geno's.
Fair enough. So you're off to like a really great start of your career, kind of living the high life there of what's going on. Teams are very good. Then you got traded to the Coyotes in 2002. That had to be like a huge gut punch. I mean, you're coming up in the system with the Flyers. You make it there. How did you react to the trade?
Yeah, I was an idiot there because, I 3 years in the NHL, all of a sudden you start to get a little comfortable. And I had made it's one of the regrets I have in my career. I made a mistake at the end of the season in the scrum with the media. I was asked the question if our then head coach Bill Barber had lost the team, and I answered it truthfully and honestly. And because I did that, I created quite a problem. And our then captain Keith Primo was put in a tough spot after my media availability, and he backed me up, which I have a lot of respect for. He didn't have to do that, but he did. He agreed with me, which I think a lot of guys did. But oftentimes players don't really say what's on their mind. They don't say, they're not honest, right? They're telling you half the truth because that's what you're supposed to do. And I was caught in a vulnerable moment where I was frustrated because I hadn't played as much as I wanted to. And, I wish I didn't do it. And because I did that, that's why I got traded. I think weeks after, Bob Clark knew that he had to make a move. And I mean, I basically second guessed, a Flyers Hall of Famer, a Hockey Hall of Famer, somebody that I had immense respect for, and I was not professional in that scrum. And because of that, I think it made it easy for the Flyers to trade me, and I got traded to Phoenix. And I quickly realized going to Phoenix that this was not Philadelphia. Well, it was in good and bad. The good was that it was not Philadelphia for the media attention and the scrutiny. You basically could live, in anonymity. Nobody noticed who you were. They didn't care. They lived their lives. It was beautiful there all the time. But at the same time, we didn't have a great team, and we weren't a contending team. I missed that. I missed I almost missed that media scrutiny. I missed the expectations. I missed the pressure, and turned out to be a great learning experience for me. On learning to shut your mouth sometimes. You just got to take it on the chin, and you don't say the truth sometimes.
Every experience is a learning experience, but you did have some success out there, and you hold a distinction for breaking the modern day NHL record for longest shutout streak by a goaltender. Went over 332 minutes or 5.5 games. So you have a shutout, right? In your mind, everybody's mind, you realize it's difficult to put a string of shutouts together back to back. But to do it over the course of a few games like you did, it's remarkable. What was your thought process going through those sets of games? Were you doing the same things every game? Did you have a routine? Was there something lucky at that time that you were like, I'm not changing what I'm doing right now. I got to continue to do this. And obviously you still get praise for it, to this day. Have other NHL goaltenders ever come up to you and jokingly kind of mention that to you, and how they're always looking to break it? Or do certain guys, who are playing now come to you and kind of talk to you about that?
Yeah. I'll answer the last part. Some players will come up to me and they're like, they can't believe that I went 5.5 games without giving up a goal. Like, guys that have played, they're kind of like, man, that's like, I don't even know how that's even possible. And I said, trust me, I don't know how it's possible either. I mean, if you saw our team, we were absolutely atrocious. And for some reason, the stars aligned perfectly for 5+ games, and we were able to do this. It was a team effort, big time. But, the backstory behind that whole shutout streak was, at the start of that season, I was third string goalie in Phoenix. I had lost my spot to a guy by the name of Zach Burke. Not Sean Burke. Sean Burke was there too. It was Zach and Sean that were there, and I basically was relegated to third string, and I didn't even practice with the team for about a month and a half. I was told by the goalie coach I couldn't practice with the team, and that I had to practice on my own with the goalie coach and 1 or 2 shooters every morning before the team came out. When the team came out, I had to get off the ice and go for my workout. So I basically was like, I was like this, forgotten piece to the team, and I had no idea what was going on. And lo and behold, Zach ended up hurting his hip or something like that in Anaheim one game, and I was summoned to come down, get dressed to be the backup during the game. And after that, boom, Sean Burke got hurt. I got to play and went on this run, which was like, so it was really. It was the oddest thing, because never in a million years, going from third string to that type of success, I couldn't imagine it, and I was superstitious during it. To get to that answer, I roomed with Brian Savage at the time, and on the road, we'd order vanilla ice cream with chocolate sauce every night before we went to bed, because it worked the first game, and we seemed to be doing well. So we continue to do that. Guys were on pins and needles around me. They didn't want to talk to me. They didn't want to look at me. They didn't want to take a penalty to screw this thing up. And when it finally ended at home. That game ended up being a 1-1 tie, believe it or not. That's how long ago it was when we had ties, if anybody remembers those days. Guys were relieved. They were like, thank God this is over. Like, they're like, I couldn't sleep. Like, guys didn't want to be they didn't want to be the one to turn the puck over that led to a breakaway for the thing to end, And I was happy that we were able to get the record. You go that far. If you would have fallen short, that would have been tough, because it's not an easy one to get. And I don't know if any goalie today I can honestly say this. I'm not saying this to be braggadocious, but I don't think any goaltender today will break it because of the rule changes that have been implemented since then. No red line, 3-on-3 overtime. The game is much more wide open now than it was back in what was that, 03, 04. So I think it's one of those records that'll be safe unless we get some Wayne Gretzky of goaltending to show up on Earth that'll just shatter all the records. But we'll see.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, with the rule changes, it'd be very difficult for anybody to get 3 shutouts in a row, let alone 5. So
yeah, well, we've seen 3. There've been a couple close calls, and every time there's a close call, I joke around, and I'm not overly active on Twitter, but I'll just joke around and I'll just throw this out there. I'll be like, oh, time to get the voodoo doll out, right. And then a guy, then he gets scored on the next night, and fans get mad at me, and I laugh, because truthfully, I mean, I don't want guys to break the record.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, this idea that records are meant to be broken, give me a break. I like the whole. It's the only record I got. Let me hold on to the damn thing,
Yeah, it would be funny if you were going to broadcast the game where somebody's going for the record, and you could just get in their ear and be like, "So you got the big chance tonight."
Or if the guy gets scored on and I just go absolutely wild in the box, that I'm thrilled that he got scored on. That'd be pretty good TV. Yeah.
That'd be awesome for sure. So yeah, you had that successful little run there with the Coyotes. After that, you're playing for the Chicago Blackhawks, the Columbus Blue Jackets. So for you, what was it like? What was it? Well, I'm not really gonna touch on that. I just want to know, what was it like for you? Because you mentioned earlier, Arizona is beautiful. I mean, you're going to the rink at 70, 80 degrees. Now you got to go up there. It's 10 degrees or less. How has that changed for your body? I mean, obviously you're from Rhode Island. You're used to the cold winters, but you're just enjoying some time in Arizona. So how is that like weather-wise changing?
Well, I went from Phoenix. I got traded to Calgary before the Olympics in Italy, in Torino. So I got traded right before that, and we had 2 little kids. My wife was devastated. She's like, "Oh my God, Calgary, are you kidding me?" She'd never been up there, And I was only there 3 months. I finished the year there, and then I was a free agent, and I signed in Chicago. And you got to remember, Chicago is a great city. What a place. I love living there. But I didn't play for the same Chicago Blackhawks that Blackhawk fans remember that won 3 Stanley Cups. Right. I played pre-Patrick Kane, pre-Jonathan Taves. But we did have Duncan Keith, Brent Seabrook, Patrick Sharp. These guys were just getting started. And I remember we had a training camp there, and they had like Troy Brower, Dustin Bufflin, those guys that I mentioned. And I was like, man, these guys are good. Like I was totally impressed. I think we were undefeated in the preseason. I was like, this team is coming. They really are. And then we didn't have a great year that year. We lost a lot of games. And I think that's how they ended up getting Jonathan Taves at 3rd overall, I think it was. And then they got Patrick Kane the next year, and then forget about it, dynasty, So you could see it. It was in the making, but when I played there, it wasn't the same. But beautiful city. I wish I would have had the chance to play there when they had their super teams. Unfortunately, I ended up losing to their first Stanley Cup team in 2010. But it was great. I mean, got to play with new guys, and the weather was different, but it's an original 6 market, which is pretty cool.
How was the pizza? You like the deep dish?
It's all right. I'm not a huge deep dish guy. I like it a little thinner. I like the pizza out east personally, especially as I'm getting a little bit older, less carbs, I guess.
Yeah, we're used to good pizza here in New York. We get spoiled, Nick and I.
Yeah.
So
that was the one thing I will say after games on the road. I always get pizza, that I don't know if they do it now because the guys are such health nuts, but there was always pizza on the road to hold you until you got to the plane where your food was, right? So if I wasn't playing that night, I got super hungry, started 3rd period if I wasn't playing, and I would crush, 6 pizzas, 6 slices, easy post game. But yeah, I miss those days.
And then some vanilla ice cream and chocolate sauce afterwards.
You got it, buddy. That's the recipe.
So you ended up playing for the Sharks and Hurricanes, and in between, you had a second stint with the Flyers, and then you finished out your career with the Flyers. In that second stint with the Flyers, you were playing with an organization that ultimately reached the Stanley Cup final in 2010 against the Blackhawks. But you kind of played more towards the end of your career as opposed to the middle of your career, right? There was a couple of years there where you kind of bounced around a little bit, just kind of dealing with how the business and the nature of the business works itself. But talk about your experience ultimately coming back home, and we'll call the Flyers home because they're the team that drafted you, playing for them a second time, getting to play with the team in 2010 that had a lot of great talent, and Jeff Carter and Mike Richards. You had, I believe Keith Pronger was on that team, correct?
Yeah, Chris Pronger, yeah.
Chris Pronger, I'm sorry. So describe the feeling of getting back to the playoffs, reaching the Stanley Cup final, which is something that you didn't do in 2000 when the Devils came back and beat them in 7 games in the conference final. And what was like the atmosphere like around the city, around the locker room, to be able to ultimately reach a goal of yours? You didn't win the Stanley Cup, but how much fun was that?
Yeah. But just to backtrack, I'd gotten bounced around from Calgary, Chicago, Columbus. And you said I hadn't played a lot, right? And I recognized that my career was on the rocks, basically. And I changed agents. I needed a different direction. And I called my new agent, and I said, and he encouraged me to call Paul Holmgren, who's now the general manager in Philadelphia, and said, have a conversation with him and see if, because I told him, I said, I just want to play. I don't want to go to another team and be a backup and play 12 games in the season. And my career is rotting. So I called Paul Holmgren and I said, look, I don't want an NHL contract. I just want to sign a minor league deal and I want to go play. I want to be the starting goalie and I want to get my game back. And Paul Holmgren, to his credit, said, great, absolutely. Come on in. We'll sign you to $100,000 minor league deal, play for the Philadelphia Phantoms. Went back to Philly, played in the minors, and played 42 games, I think it was, for the Phantoms. Got my confidence back, got my game back. And during that trade deadline, the Flyers wanted to sign me to an NHL contract, but they were up against it with 50 contracts. They couldn't sign me. I was a free agent in essence in the NHL, and I signed with San Jose for the rest of that season. San Jose signed me to an NHL deal, and then I re-signed with San Jose for the rest of that year. Got my career back on track. Went to San Jose, President's Cup trophy team. Great team. Got my, like I said, I was back. I felt like I was the guy that, had come out of my rookie season. And then I re-signed with Philadelphia 2 years. And we had a magical run in 09-10 to the final. We got in on the last day of the regular season in a shootout against the Rangers.
It was a play-in game.
You Ranger fan? Okay. Yeah. I mean, Kenny Albert jokes around because he's never gone on vacation. And because of that loss, his family was able to go on vacation. His wife booked a vacation that day when the shootout was over. So she thanks me for sending his family on a family vacation. He's mad because, he wanted the Rangers to go to the playoffs. And, we got in and made it all the way to the Stanley Cup final. So you talk about something that was improbable. Henrik Lundqvist is like the best shootout goalie I've ever seen in my life. And, here I am at the other end of the ice as this bum that, with Flyer fans that bags on their heads, because we were choking, trying to get into the playoffs, and we ended up winning in the shootout. So, yeah, it was great. That city was electric. There's nothing like springtime in Philadelphia when you have a great team and you're in the playoffs. I know it's a football town. Trust me, it's Eagles. There's no doubt. But when you get to springtime and you have a good team in Philadelphia, there's no better place. It's actually, it hurts me to see where they are now and what they've been the last couple of seasons and how, uncompetitive they are compared to the teams that I played for there. Because those players that are playing there, they don't have the same experience of being a Flyer like I had and like a lot of guys had. It's a great place. They got to get back to that.
I think at the very least, we're going to be seeing some phenomenal press conferences with Tortorella.
Yeah, big time. Big time. Yeah, it's going to be great. Some great sound bites. I can't wait to see.
Did that decision shock you? Did that decision shock you? Because he's everywhere he goes, his team in some capacity wins. The Flyers, I think, are where our Rangers were a couple of years ago, where you were at a crossroads, you have to make a couple of hard decisions. And the Rangers ultimately, they wrote a letter that said we're going to rebuild, but it was kind of more
Hmm.
like a retool, right?
Hmm.
So that doesn't surprise you at all that Tortorella kind of wanted to go to a situation like that as opposed to kind of trying one more time here for a team that
Yeah.
was a little bit closer.
Yeah. No, I think for Torts, and I got to know him a little bit working at ESPN. This is a guy who loves to coach, man. Like he loves it. It's his life. And he likes nothing better than being an underdog. He likes nothing better than people doubting him or his team to get the most out of him. And he did it in Columbus. I mean, you think about they swept Tampa. Tampa should have won 3 cups in a row. Uh, that Tampa team easily should have won that series, easy, and they got swept. Why? Because John Tortorella squeezed every last inch out of that Blue Jacket team that beat those guys. So, to me, Philly needs an identity again. I know it's not the days of the Broad Street Bullies anymore. You can't go in and beat people up. That's not what the game is. But you can be a heck of a lot tougher to play against. And if a team's going to come in and grab 2 points in Philadelphia, they better have some ice bags on them after the game. It better be a hard fought win. But I think teams are going in there. I mean, they could go in there and play guilty if they wanted to. They could have gone out all the night before. Like, look, the St. Louis Blues, that whole story about they're in a Philadelphia bar. They got absolutely crushed the night before, right? Play this song, Gloria, and it's their rallying tune for the rest of the year. It started in Philadelphia. Why? Because they knew the Flyers weren't that good. There are cities in the NHL where you're playing against a team. It's a lot less now, but in my day, it was, you had cities that you could go to and be like, okay, we're going to dinner, and dinner might turn into a couple extra hours, right? And the next day you go in and it doesn't affect you. You still get 2 points. So the team is that bad. I think that's what it's been in Philly the last couple of years. It ain't going to be that way going forward. If you're going to come out of Philly with 2 points, you're going to have to earn it. And I'm looking forward to it. As an ex-Flyer, as an alum, I mean, I want to see this team get some identity back, get some bite to their game back. Yeah, they're lacking some talent. That's fine. But defend harder, make it more difficult for the opposition to get to the net, make them pay the price, and see what they can do and surprise some people. It's fun to be an underdog sometimes.
Yeah, Tortorella signature is just getting the most out of the guys. Everyone's going to be blocking shots.
Yep.
And, that alone wins some games. So I'm sure
Yep.
they'll be much better off here moving forward. For you, your playing career comes to an end. 2013, you jump right into it, get the opportunity to do some broadcasting. How did that come about for you? Was it something where your agent as a player helped you out with that? Was it something where you just the network came to you? How did that opportunity come out for you? And was there any hesitations for you to do media?
Not really. No hesitation. I mean, a lot of people told me when I was playing, hey, you should think about getting into this after you're done playing. And when guys kept saying it to me, it's like, one person says it, 2, 3, all of a sudden enough people say it, you're like, maybe I should do this, But you're also like, what the hell are you trying to tell me? You're trying to say that like I suck at playing goal and I should retire? Like you're kind of like offended a little bit, but you're also intrigued by the other side. And you always hear players tell you, play until they cut your skates off, right? And so I had a shoulder injury during the last lockout and had surgery, and that surgery set me back big time in my training. I knew at that point my career was in trouble. I had 1 year left on my contract. I ended up getting traded back from Carolina to Philadelphia, spent most of it in Adirondack in the minors, and I was ready to retire. And my agent called me in July, late July, and said, hey, you got an offer from a team in Switzerland. Do you want to go? And I said, I don't know. I haven't been training. I thought I was just going to hang him up. And he, it's pretty good money. He's like, you should go and play 1 more year, and then you can, plan for the next phase. So I went to Switzerland and played. I only lasted 2.5 months. They ended up buying me out of my contract. They signed a Finnish goalie. And I came back home the rest of that year and basically just got immersed in my son's hockey, started coaching his team, helping out, watching my daughter play basketball, and enjoyed that side of it. But man, I missed the game. I didn't want to coach full time because I knew the commitment to that, and I want to be around my kids. And that's when I decided to get into TV. I made a few phone calls to those people that told me I should do it. One guy was Elliot Friedman up at Sportsnet in Canada. I reached out to him. He got me in touch with the guys at the NHL and ended up doing a couple gigs at NHL Network, which those people at NHL Network put me in touch with NBC Sports. And next thing you know, I'm there, and it all happened fast. And, I'm grateful for all the people that kind of set me up, and made phone calls for me, because without those phone calls, maybe you never get in. And, been really fortunate to do national now for, going in my 8th year, I believe.
Nick and I are Secaucus alum. Worked in that building I worked in that building longer than he did.
Yeah.
It was more of a cup of coffee for him, a couple of months. But I
Yeah.
started working there in 2017 up until the pandemic happened.
Okay, so I was before you. Yeah, I my first gig at NHL Network was in the store down in Manhattan.
Oh, I remember those days too.
Yeah, I did it with EJ Raddick and Steve Mears, and it was a non-paid gig. I didn't realize it was rehearsal, really. And a guy by the name of Joe Whalen was a producer at that time, and Joe brought me in. I did the show, and I was on the train ride back to Philly. And he called me up. He's like, hey, we loved your work. He's like, we'll sign you to the rest of the year. This was like March. He goes, we'll sign you to the rest of the year. And Joe goes, I will send an email over to the folks at NBC Sports. This was a Friday. He said, follow up with those guys on Monday. And I was like, oh my God, dude. I was like, thanks so much, And I followed up on Monday. Next thing you know, first round of the playoffs, I come in to do a bit in Stamford, Connecticut for NBC Sports. One show. In walks Sam Flood, the boss there, and he says to me, he goes, when are you coming back? I said, I don't know, it's my only show. He goes, you'll be back. And I was back, and then it turned into 6 years at NBC Sports. So I tell you, I'm so grateful for all those people that got me hooked up.
Yeah, you do a remarkable job. And one of the I think roles that has increased here in recent years, and Nick and I, once upon a time, we had Pierre McGuire on. So he's one of the guys who's also kind of been able to do this, being inside the glass. How has your perspective of the game shifted or changed in any way since, number one, you started broadcasting, and number two, since you've been able to watch full games in between the benches and kind of have that perspective again as a player, but this time not on the bench, kind of watching the game from a pure analysis standpoint?
Yeah. I mean, I had that view for a lot of my career. I didn't play as much as I would have liked in my career. I think I played 300 plus games. So I watched a lot of NHL games from the end of the bench in that virtually almost the same spot. So I felt really comfortable down there right off the hop. I mean, I felt like I saw the game there, but when you're on the bench as a backup goalie, you're not looking for everything to analyze, right? I mean, you might be, I remember when I was in San Jose, we had to do face-offs, like chart face-offs. That was our job as a backup. So I was super focused on face-offs and what was a win, what was a loss, and stuff like that. I'm not really sure why we did that, but maybe so that we didn't wander off into space. But and then other times, I'd focus on what the D coach is saying to our D and trying to learn things, from that side of the game. And then other times I just simply watched the other goalie that I played with. I mean, I remember being in Calgary for 3 months and watching Mika Kiprasov and just being blown away at how good this guy was. I just couldn't believe it. I mean, the guy looked like he didn't have a care in the world and went out there and was so dominant. So there was different things that I watched from the end of the bench that, that's what you focus on. But when you're analyzing the game, obviously it's all encompassing. It's both teams. Obviously there is no bias. I know fans get mad on Twitter and say that, you're cheering for one team or not the other. I'm going to say this right now. I don't care who wins. I really don't. Sometimes I don't even remember who won the game a day or two later. I don't care. All I care about is that we do as good a job as we can in the production, right? That our replays are on point, that we're factual, that we document the game the way it should be documented. There is no bias. I mean, if a team is dominating a game, obviously you're going to be talking more about that team because the other team, what do you want us to do? You want us to sit there and say that the Rangers stink tonight? And here's why and this guy's terrible. Look at this guy's decision making. You're not going to go out and say that. You know what I mean? You're going to show the good play. I think you want to be I remember as a player, I don't want to be the guy that's killing a player. I didn't like when if a broadcaster was killing me, it's not personal. You know what I mean? So you try and show the good side of a play as opposed to sometimes it's hard to avoid the negative, but you try your best to be fair in that regard. But yeah, I have no bias towards any team, any play. I mean, I like players. I'm not going to lie to you. There's some guys that I like more than I like a certain type of player. And I like those guys. I'm not going to lie to you. I kind of lean towards players like that. I like a hard-nosed player. I like a guy that plays the game with a little bit of throwback to him, but with new age skill and skating. That's what I like personally. And it doesn't mean I want my whole team to be like that. But if I'm, like I know one guy that is, vilified is Tom Wilson. People hate him. I'm sorry. I'm going to say it. I love the guy. Like, I like him. I like the way he plays. Sometimes does he cross the line? Absolutely. He crosses the line sometimes. But because his intention is to play the game hard. And when you have the game is fast, and when your intent is to play hard, sometimes you're going to make a poor decision. And he's paid for it. He gets suspended. It's not like he gets away with it. And it can hurt his team. It can hurt his checkbook. All these things. But to me, players like that, I like, because I still think he can play. I mean, the guy is capable of scoring 30 goals, in a great year, but 20 with his eyes closed, so I think he's a good player. But yeah, it's a long answer, but that's, how I see the game now. And, last year I didn't do a lot of inside the glass at ESPN. I was upstairs, and the difference between those things is that on the ice, you miss some stuff. There's stuff off to the sides. The bench is getting your way. You miss stuff. It's fast down there. You need another set of eyes upstairs that can help you out. So you are going to miss stuff down there. You have to realize that. Upstairs, you see the play develop a lot easier. You see things happening from a bird's eye view. I think it's easier to analyze from up there.
How much does it change? Like, if you're doing, and you've done it, if you're the in-studio analyst and you're watching the game there versus obviously you're in the stadium broadcasting the game, do you feel like it's tougher to do the studio work versus the color commentary inside the glass because you're maybe missing things because you're off a monitor? And how does that work out for you as far as going into the different roles, your prep work?
Yeah, studio is it's different. I'm not going to lie to you. I prefer to be at the games just because I like being around the players and ex teammates of mine that are now coaching. It's great to see people, to still be in the game. When you're in the studio, it's just you and your studio partners and the producer, and it's kind of lonely in there, to be quite honest with you. And so you don't get a feel for the game. You have to really, in the studio, really pay attention, I find. You got to really focus in on, number one, I like to listen to the broadcast personally, because what they're saying is important. You want to play off of what the play-by-play guy and the color guy is saying. And if there's a narrative that they're saying, or there's a tone to the game, you want to make sure you have it. So, you can't be distracted, going on Twitter or whatever, focus, watch the game, like really dive into it. You know what I mean? And imagine you're at the game. That's what I try to do when I'm in the studio, and at a game, a lot easier just because you're there and the juices are flowing to do that. I think they're challenging in their different ways. But to me, I like doing the games, but I'm not going to say no to doing studio either. I'm a team player. If ESPN wants me in the studio, I'll do studio. If they want me at the game, I'll do the game. It's all good for me.
So, an important question we always ask our hockey broadcasters, kind of sounds funny, but especially if you're going to be doing overtime games or whatnot, what is your eating schedule like to get you into that game? And then also, are you somebody that's drinking a lot during the games, or maybe not? It depends on where the game's being done, because you got to run to the bathroom. There's no bathroom. So how did that work? How does that break down for you? And when you were a player, what was your pregame meal as well?
Yeah, Nick, these are important questions. Great question.
Hard-hitting journalism here.
Listen, so. The one thing I learned early doing the games, down at ice level, it's kind of cold, right? So, look, there's nerves too, right? You get a little nervous. You get a little, there's a little nervous energy before the game. So if you start crushing coffees, you're going to be dancing around in that box with nowhere to go. You got to wait for the period then to get out of there. So I learned a lot less coffee, limit the water for sure, because you just don't know. And you don't have time unless it's a real emergency. You don't have time during a commercial break if you're upstairs to go run to the bathroom. Like in Calgary, for example, the building, there's a catwalk that's over the ice. It's a terrific position. But to get to the bathroom, you got to go back into the crowd and go to the bathroom there. So there is no going to the bathroom during a TV timeout. You got to wait for intermission to do it. So you got to learn these things, and you're a rookie all over again, in these new buildings and whatnot. But for eating purposes, try to eat a lunch after the morning skates, and that's the last time I'll eat until after the game. And this is the one thing I got to get better at, because then after the game, you get that late night. You haven't eaten since noon, 1 o'clock. So now it's post game, and it's 10 o'clock, and you're eating. And that's when the suits start getting tight. You start packing on the pound. So it's like I got to find a better system, because I'm not 23 anymore. I'm not eating pizza anymore. I got to, my eating habits. This summer I actually really worked hard at. I got back in the gym, started working out, started watching my eating a lot more, and look, I'm 45 years old. I don't want to balloon up. I still want to be in good shape. I still want to play sports. I still want to ski. I still want to play tennis. All these things. So, doing that. And when I played, pregame meal, basically the same thing. You eat at like 1 o'clock, have a little snack before the game, and then you don't eat again until post game. So, but you're burning a lot of calories there, so you can get away with a lot more.
Yeah, not as much calorie burning in the booth.
No, there isn't.
See, if you snuck a hot pretzel in between periods, it's not going to come off. So, got to be careful.
And sure. I have done that too before. I'm not going to lie to you.
You have no choice. Brian, it's 2022 now. Can we do something about the fact that in so many arenas, the backup goalie can't fit on the bench? It's so weird to me to watch broadcast and I see the goalie in the corner down the alleyway. Why is that? And what was your experience like when you couldn't sit with your teammates on the bench?
It's the worst. It is the worst. Chicago, there's no room on that bench. As a backup, you got to sit in the locker room, and then you go out the back of the bench, and it's like 3 steps down, and you go into the locker room, and that's where you have to sit. So you're sitting there, and let me tell you the anxiety of being a backup goalie when you're not playing that night. People think, oh, it must be the greatest job in the world, right? You just be able to put your gear on, relax, chill out. No, that's not it. You're starting goaltender gives up a couple quick ones. I'm going to tell you right now, the heart rate of the backup goaltender goes from about 85, 80 while he's sitting on the bench to about $185 quickly. Because now you got to get, oh my God, I might get into this game. And Chicago, back in, when I was playing, when they were winning cups, they were a powerhouse, right? So you're going to get absolutely embarrassed. So you better be ready. So you're sitting in the locker room, no feel for what the hell's going on. And then you get the trainer runs down and he's like, Boosh, you're in. You're like, oh my God, it's a complete dread. You want nothing to do with that game when you're sitting in the locker room. And then there's like the old igloo in Pittsburgh. You had to sit in a corner. That was terrible. And you can feel it. You just know when the starting goalie is getting the hook. You know it. You feel it. You can sense it. And you just try to hide. You'll be in the corner. You like try to hide underneath the dasher. You know what I mean? So that the coach can't see you. And he's pointing to get you in there. I don't understand. But you got to be on the bench to give yourself a fighting chance. That's for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. It's tough to get to be like in the game when you're not.
Yeah.
There, so.
I'm trying to think of the buildings that Montreal. I know you got to sit across the ice in the runway. They don't have enough room on that bench. Trying to think where else. Chicago, San Jose. They don't have room on the back on the visitors bench. You got to sit in the corner. So yeah, those are bad spots, man. It's like you may as well not even think about playing the backup goaltender that night when you have to do that, because they're over there, having conversations with the fans, and who the hell knows what they're talking about over there, and then they get thrown into a game.
How about this year when you're inside the glass in one of those arenas? You invite the goalies in with you. What a dynamic that would be. I don't know if you'd fit in there, but Would be funny sight for sure.
That'd be great. We get them started on their post-playing career, That'd be a good get there and say maybe they can give us some real good dirt on their team. We could talk about that. See if they can be honest, like Brian Boucher was in a postseason scrum.
Absolutely. So when you're interviewing players now, do you know when they're just giving you the coaches speak versus when they actually want to say something else?
Oh yeah. I mean, here's the thing. I'm asking questions that I know the answers to, right? Like that's the toughest part. It's like I know the answer to this question, but I'm asking it anyway. Unless you're doing stuff where you're being super edgy and you're real, but I don't know. It seems like TNT's been able to do that with their studio. They've been able to get, in the warm-up interviews, they get a little loose there and they kind of get the guys to crack up, and which is great. I mean, I think it's awesome, but I know that the directive when I worked at NBC Sports, we don't do a ton of interviewing. I don't do a ton of interviewing now at ESPN. We have sideline reporters for that, so it's a little bit different than NBC. But when I was down there at ice level, you'd have three pregame interviews with players before the game started. So our directive was to be more like on point. It's about the game. Let's not be goofy. You know what I mean? And so you follow the orders, right? But truthfully, the questions that I'm asking, I know the answers to, and I know the players are just, some of them are good guys, and some of them aren't. Like some have time for you, and some are just like, all right, let's get on with this. So the guys that can give you an answer, thumbs up to those guys. They get it. They know that I'm there trying to do a job. If they make me look better, I appreciate it.
I wanted to ask, stylistically, which players playing now or through the years most reminded you of yourself? And I have to ask this because Nick and our guy, Henrik Lundqvist, that gorgeous face, he was a natural to transition into TV. Everybody saw that coming.
Mm-hmm.
So who reminded you the most of yourself in terms of playing, and which player in particular, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a goalie, but which player do you think at some point would be a natural, like you and Ryan Callahan and a lot of the guys like Patrick Sharp who have done it through the years for television?
So you're asking me what goalie that's playing today reminded me as my style as a playing style?
Yeah.
I think that's a hard one because I feel like since I played, technically goalies now are a lot of the same. They're all blockers. They play percentages a lot more than I ever did. But there's a few guys that kind of like Alex Nedeljkovic, for example, in Detroit. He's a guy that I think plays a lot on field, and I played on field. I think Marty Brodeur was one of the classic cases of a guy that played on field. Technically, there was some flaws to his game. If you got a goalie coach and had a goalie coach breakdown video of Marty, they'd probably say, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like this, I don't like that. But yet the guy won 45 every year. You know what I mean? But because Marty had this amazing ability to read pucks. Curtis Joseph could read the puck, could read the play, knew players' tendencies, baited guys where to shoot in a way that was, for the goalie was unpredictable. I tried to play that way too. I didn't do it at the level that Marty and Cujo did. They're far superior than I ever was. But I think a guy like Nedeljkovic is a guy that kind of plays that way. Antti Ranta stands out to me in that regard. Peter Mrazek, I think, does too. He gets a little too over aggressive. I got over aggressive at times in my career. Like you gotta read it. I mean, if there's backdoor passing options, you can't be over aggressive. I mean, you gotta play the backdoor play sometimes. It is what it is. You can't just say, "Oh, my D-man's supposed to have that." At the end of the day, it's back of the net. It's a goal. I mean, that's the whole goal. The idea is to not give up any goals. But yeah, so I think those guys stand out to me. But everybody else now, when you watch them, you could close. You wouldn't close your eyes, but you could put a different jersey on that goaltender and wonder if it's the same. Is it this guy or that guy? You wouldn't know because they could all play the same styles. This is what I'm trying to say. As far as players today that could turn out to be good broadcasters, well, that's a great question. I probably know the answer to this, and I don't know why I'm drawing a blank right now.
Let's go with Tom Wilson.
Tom Wilson? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, he's certainly good looking guy. I mean, let's be honest.
I always thought Sean Avery was going to be a broadcaster.
Yeah, I mean, I would think he'd be great. I mean, in the sense that he says it like it is. I mean, sometimes I don't know that that's what you can do though, right? I mean, I think you gotta be able to have some idea of toning it down a little bit. But yeah, I mean, if you want opinions, he's certainly one that has a strong one. I wish I could answer this question for you, because I know that there's players out there that I don't know why I'm drawing a blank right now.
I have one for you.
Give it to me.
Agree on that. PK.
Oh yeah. PK for sure. Yeah. PK, like, to me, I think he, like, studio wise, would be terrific. You know what I mean? Like, the thing is like, it'll be interesting when they do fully retire. Like, do they give you the real stuff? You know what I mean? Like, are they really going to be honest? That's the thing. Because I found when I got into it, I was like, if you catch me, if we're hanging out in the backyard and, I got a few, I'll give you the real stuff. You know what I mean? Like, but you can't. I mean, my opinions are my opinions. It's not all of it's fact, right? If I have an opinion on a player and I don't think he's, I don't think he's great. I mean, you might get that opinion from me in the backyard, but I don't know that I would say that because I just don't think it's professional to do that either, right? I wouldn't want somebody doing that to me. I mean, my son right now he was drafted by Ottawa last year in the first round. I see that side of it now. Like, he's a kid coming up, and just the scrutiny and the bloggers, and so I'm very aware of that side, that that these players and kids coming up, they've got feelings, and to just throw out some mindless opinion of mine, I mean, it can be reckless at times. So you got to be mindful of that stuff, and make sure that what you're saying is done in a real tactful way, in my opinion.
So do you get more nervous watching your son Tyler play, or when you were playing? And also, were you surprised that he wanted to be a winger and not a goalie?
Well, he had no choice. Mom said there's no way he's being a goalie. That was number one. She begged me when he started playing. She said, please don't have him play goal, because the kids grew up in the Philly area, right? And it's a tough place for goalies. And she's like, just do me a favor, please. She's like, I had it hard enough for your career. I don't want to relive this. And so I told her, I said, I'll take care of it. I just made sure that he got a goalie mask and some goalie gear just to make him happy. And then he totally forgot about it, and he wanted to be a forward the rest of the way. I get way more nervous watching him than I ever did when I played. Way more nervous. I'm like at the edge of my seat every time he hops on the ice for a shift. And then when he's not on the ice for a shift, I sit back and I'll talk to my wife. I'm like, oh, here he is. He's out there. You know what I mean? I watch every stride. You know what I mean? I'm a crazy hockey dad, I guess, in that regard.
All right, the future is bright as far as your family is concerned.
I hope so. Yeah, he's working hard, and right now is his first day of rookie camp with Ottawa today, and they start their rookie tournament tomorrow in Buffalo. So he's going to put his Senators jersey on for the first time, which I'm super proud of him for, and hope he has a lot of fun. Hope he has a good camp and has a good year. It's been a crazy couple of years for all of us, right? With the pandemic, and everything's been what used to be normal is no longer normal, and people handle it differently. People had different situations, and that goes for kids that are coming up playing hockey too. And he was affected by it, and hopefully now we can just put it in the rearview mirror and enjoy watching hockey the way it used to be.
For sure. For you in your life, your career, what would you say is your I'm right moment? So what I mean by that is a time where you wanted to do something or pursue something. You asked somebody for advice. They said, you know what, Brian, that sounds like a bad idea. I don't think you should do that. And you said, you know what, I'm going to do it anyway. And ultimately, you will see why it is that I'm right.
Oof. Um, you know what? It's only happened once in my life that happened. For the most part, nobody's ever discouraged me from doing what I wanted to do. I told elementary school teachers when I was a kid that I would play in the NHL. It was my dream. I thought about it every single day when I was a kid, and I think I manifested it to happen. I really truly do. I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but that's what happened. But when I was in ninth grade, I had knee surgery, and I had a significant cartilage tear in my knee, significant enough that the orthopedic surgeon told me that I should probably think about playing another sport other than hockey. And I was in a full leg cast. This is when they tried to repair it instead of removing it and just moving on. They tried to repair it, so it's got to stay. And cartilage doesn't have a lot of blood flow. So not that I'm not a medical doctor, but so they tried to get the cartilage to lock down and heal. And he told me, he's like, I don't know if this is going to take. He's like, I hope. He goes, but if not, you should probably think about maybe, doing something else, right? And I looked at him. I was like, are you serious? I was in ninth grade. Like, I wanted to play hockey. I was a kid. And basically, when that happened, I was super motivated to prove him that I was going to play hockey. And I did. I ended up playing. I ended up re-injuring my knee. And eventually, the doctors in Philadelphia, when I was pro, the repair tore again. And they removed the cartilage. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. My knee could actually move. And I ended up playing. So now I just make sure I'm smart. Like, because I don't have a lot of cartilage in the knee, I make sure I don't do a lot of running, a lot of pounding on it, because I'm going to end up having to get a knee replacement at some point. But yeah, I mean, that was one time in my life when he said, I think you should, and I said, no, I'm not doing that. Everything else has been, people have always supported me, and it's always worked out. But that's, early on, I proved him wrong.
Absolutely perfect. Great answer. Exactly what we're looking for. Brian, we thank you for your time. We really, really appreciate this. Nick and I, we wish you and everybody at ESPN the best of luck coming broadcasting this season. We wish you and your family the best of luck. We wish Tyler the best of luck. Proud dad, proud hockey dad. What we do is we always give our guests here the last word. So if there's anything else you would like to share or promote, you do have plenty to promote right now. Now is the time to do it. And once again, thank you for your time.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. This is a lot of fun. I don't really have much to promote other than I'm looking forward to the start of this season. October 11th, I will be doing the West Coast game with John Buchagras and Leah Hextall, Vegas in LA. It'll be on ESPN, not ESPN Plus. I know some fans are not subscribing to the app, but it'll be on regular ESPN. It's a doubleheader that night. Your Rangers play the Lightning, I believe, in the first half, and
I'll be there.
You guys make
I'll
sure
be
you
there.
Get home after the game. No pops after the game. Get a cup of coffee. Watch the West Coast game. We should have a good one between two good teams out west. So yeah, just watch that. I mean, hopefully look, year one at ESPN, it was different for all of us. A learning curve, I think, coming from different places. But I'm looking forward to year two here at ESPN. I work with a lot of great colleagues and people that are re-immersing themselves into the sport, but they're passionate and they want to be great, and looking forward to year two here at ESPN.
Brian, thank you so much for your time. Maybe Joe and I will see you at Madison Square Garden this season. We'll come down and say hi, but it was tremendous having you on here. Thank you for your answers and your thoughtfulness. So that's going to do it here for this episode of You Know I'm Right, for our very special guest, Brian Boucher, and from my co-host, Joe Calabrese. I am Nick Durst, and this has been You Know I'm Right.